Hi all, my name is Gaurav and in this video we will talk about phases in Maven Build Lifecycle. So whenever you work on any project, your project go through different phases. So for example, you start writing your code. After writing your code, you validate whether all the dependencies, configurations are in place or not. So you validate your project basically. After you find okay all things are in place, you compile your project. Then after compiling your project, you need to make sure that all the components of the projects are working fine or not. So basically you perform the unit testing on your project. So that's a test phase. After all the unit test cases are passed, you package your project into a jar file or var file, whatever packaging you need, you package your project. So that's a package phase. After packaging your project, probably you may need to do some additional check before shipping it to someone. So probably earlier you checked that individual components are working fine. So probably now you need to check whether all the components together working seamlessly in an expected manner. So that's an integration test and the phase is verify. Then after verifying that all the integrations are working fine, you deploy that project into a local repository or remote repository. So for that we have a install and deploy phase. Okay, so this is project. So Maven is basically works on the same way. So what is Maven? Maven is a build automation tool which provides a ready-made commands to facilitate each phase of your project. So for example, if you want to compile your project, there is a command, compile command in Maven, where with this command you can compile your project. Okay, and every phase comes with a goal. So for example, compile phase comes with a goal that it will compile source code of your project. Verify phase comes with a goal that it will run your integration test of the project. Okay, so every phase comes with a goal. Okay, so to demonstrate those phases, I have created a sample project. So this is my project structure. I have a Maven Lifecycle project name. Inside that I have a directory src main java, which contains all the source code. Then we have a src test java directory, and inside that I have my integration tests and the unit test in the different package. Then I have a pom.xml. Basically it's a project object model. Full form of pom is project object model. Okay, it has all the dependencies required to build or run the project successfully. Okay, and this is my local Maven repository path. Okay, so I'll show you in Eclipse quickly. So this is my project Maven Lifecycle. Inside src main java I have app.java. App.java, let's say I'm working on a project for creating a castle or home. So I just put a dummy code. I just printed castle constructed. So this is my application source code. This is my unit test, app.test.java. Inside that I have few unit test cases which are checking the different component of a castle or house, like check the brakes, check the electric wire, check the water pipeline. Then I have integration test cases. Okay, IT stands for, this is the class, app IT case. IT stands for integration. T stands for test. So IT case means integration test cases. Okay, so in this I have some functions to check whether wire and electric fuse are working fine together, whether the water pipeline and water supply are working fine together, whether doors are properly aligned with the walls. Again, I mean, don't go with this code. I mean, don't worry about this code. This is just a dummy code. Okay. Now, next we will talk about the pom.xml. So in pom.xml, I have this testng dependency. Why testng dependency? Because all the test case I am running on the testng framework. Okay, so you can see here I am running on TestNG framework. Okay, so this at the rate test annotation belongs to TestNG. Okay, same with the integration test cases as well. I am running on the TestNG framework. So that is why I have added TestNG dependency. Now we have a plugins. So plugins, basically you can understand, these are the special tools or specialists to perform, to achieve some goals in particular phases. For example, Surefire plugin is required to run the unit test cases. So it belongs to basically test phase. Failsafe plugin, it is required to run the integration test cases. So basically it belongs to verify phase. Okay, I have one more plugin, Maven jar plugin. What it does? It converts our source code into a jar file, or okay, or whatever packaging you have provided in your pom.xml. So in my pom.xml I have provided packaging as a jar. So it will convert my source code into jar. So here I have added class name, which class name I need to, which class basically has my source code. So this is app.java. So I have provided a full qualified name of app.java. Okay. So one more thing I would like to highlight here. So we talked about this project structure. We talked about this POM. We talked about Surefire plugin as well. So as we know, all our test case residing in the SRC test Java, and Maven also provide a guidelines for the naming convention of unit test case. What are those guidelines? So those guidelines are, for unit test case, guidelines are any test case, any test class name starts with test or ends with test or ends with tests and in the end s, or ends with the test case. So those are classes qualified for the unit test case. In short, we can say any class which contains test in its name or ends with test case qualified for the unit test class. Okay. So that is why I have provided my unit test class name as apptest.java. It contains test inside its name. Okay. And the similarly it has naming convention for the integration test cases. So for integration test cases, what is the naming convention? Any class which starts with class name starts with IT or ends with IT or ends with IT case qualified for the integration test cases. Maven itself identified those classes, such classes as a integration test classes. Okay. So that is why I have created an integration test as app IT case. Okay. Maven also provide the guidelines for the project structure. So what are the guidelines for the project structure? So these are the guidelines for project structure. I am quickly opening the link. This. So it talks about like SRC main Java directory should be having the application source code. SRC test Java should be having the test source, like this. SRC IT having the integration test, but in our case we have integration test case inside SRC test Java, because for SRC IT if we keep our integration test cases into SRC IT, we need to do some additional configuration. We'll talk about that too in further videos, but for now, to make it simple, I have kept integration test cases and unit test cases inside SRC test Java. Okay. So till now we are clear, and this is my path where all the dependencies of my whatever I have defined in the pom.xml would be installing. So this is C users.m2 repository. Let me quickly open that too. So I am opening it. This is my folder M2 repository. So here all my required dependency would be placed. Okay. So we talked about basic Maven lifecycle and the project structure. In next subsequent video, we will actually execute the different Maven phases on this project. Thank you.